Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows. Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
We've been expecting you.
Monday, time for our maven of the supernatural, Denise Pridemore. This is the Paranormal Pride. Join to listen and chat live on WBHM-DB.com or Spreaker app. Search WBHM-DB every Monday at 7 p.m. Central for your supernatural paranormal fix. Welcome to the Paranormal Pride, where the show is about the guest and the listener.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome, everyone, to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and I've been looking forward to this day since I received Pamela K. Kinney's first book a couple years ago, and we finally get to talk, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this, so make sure you go out there on Amazon and check out Pamela K. Kinney's books. Her latest one is Haunted Surrey to Suffolk. This is in Virginia. I know it sounds like it's somewhere else. Spooky locations along routes 10 and 460. And her other book was the Virginia's Haunted Triangle.
Virginia's Haunted I can tell you it right now.
Go ahead.
Virginia's Haunted Historic Triangle, Williamsburg, Yorktown, Jamestown, and other haunted locations. And that's actually not my first book. I have quite a few before that.
Well, that was the first one you sent me. And I will tell you, that book, I felt like when I opened that book that I was opening a huge gift, because the way that it was printed, the way that it was presented was so professional. The pages felt like parchment. The pictures were so perfect and clear, and I could see them so well. And the lettering was the right size. You know, that the lettering is a big deal. If the font is something too small, it gets, if you have to wear thick reading glasses just to see it, that upsets me because I don't have a vision problem. I just can't see distance, but up close, I can see anything you want. But I was impressed with that one. I mean, it just felt so nice. And then this new one, the Haunted Surrey to Suffolk, it had the same feel, even though it was paperback. And so I really enjoyed the Haunted Surrey to Suffolk because it was so easy to read. And I liked all the history that you put in it, just like the other one where you put down history, then you talked about your paranormal investigation of it. And so as I was reading it, I was feeling, first of all, I know this location now. I know what's historic about it. And then when you talked about your paranormal experiences, it was great. The other book, that one, I went to college at William and Mary, I was there for a week for something to do with Phi Theta Kappa back in 1998. So I know about it. I also went to King's Dominion. I don't know how many times. My sister lives in Virginia Beach. So needless to say, I know this area well enough. And I had family that lived in Richmond, so we used to come down a lot. So some of the places you were talking about in the first book, I've already been. So reading the Haunted Story to Suffolk, I am finding out that there are more places that I've been that I didn't know was haunted back. Well, you have to realize last time I'd been would have been probably in the like 82. And so, so it made it really fun for me to revisit some of the places that I had already been. So as you can tell, I really like your books. So, which I will write that up for you.
I wrote these books and how I want to read them. Because, you read things over the years. My first books technically were the original Ghost Hunter in the 60s. Hans Holzer. Mm-hmm. So I liked it I was a kid and a teenager, and I said, I like this. It's like going to other places in the world or even nearby me. He was actually when I lived in San Diego, he was actually at the Whaley House, which is and I've had experiences in it to that place when I was younger. I even saw a solid, a Mrs. Whaley. But it was like visiting places in a different way that I would love to do. Stuff instead of the same old boring tour. So when I wrote these books, had a chance to write them because my editor for Schiffer at the time went to it. She was a fellow fiction writer, horror, science, and she got a job with the Ghost Book Division. She was asking some of us who wanted to write real ghost stories, not the made-up stuff. So I kind of knew stuff growing up in California. I thought, well, I live in Richmond, so I did the Richmond one. Kind of learned up how to do a book proposal because I never done that before. Not like fiction, you have to have the whole thing done. So I had to write one up, and I thought of it like a salesperson because I worked in different couple times to do with sales. So I know sales is a good sales pitch, and whatever I did, it worked. So that got me on the road writing ghost books, and I like writing them not only for how I would like to read them, but I also learn things. In fiction, it's all my imagination in my head. Even if I have to learn some things technically or something I need for the story I'm writing or the book. And this stuff, I'm learning legends I never knew about. I'm learning history pieces I don't know about because not everything is like some of the personal stuff. And some of this stuff has actually inspired me to write some fiction stuff too. So writing some of these books. So I got some creepy horror stuff out there that's been written or been submitted, and some fantasy ideas. Even my urban fantasy novel took ideas from my head because of Richmond and area to do with that and some stuff too. So this all helps me. It helps me, the writer too, the fiction writer.
Where are you from?
California. I was born in Nebraska, Omaha, raised until I was age 4. My father got job transferred. He was union construction to California. So I lived in Northern California for a long time, Sacramento, Stockton. Then we moved to middle of Southern California. Then we had San for a year. Then I lived in San Diego, and then of course El Cajon, where I grew up. Mostly went to high school and that. So pretty well California girl. But I knew some of the haunted spots out there. You hear the stuff, and it's not like my friends and I weren't into that weird stuff anyway. So all that. So by 85, when I was already married, my second marriage, and ended up out here, and his family's out here, and he's actually from New York. It was like, par se for me. But I've been writing since I was really young. I used to make up stories all the time. So all the ghost stuff I learned, all the science fiction stuff I watched, all the anything, it can over the years. And then I got published with poetry when I was 7 in a magazine and got paid for it. That was kind of cool. Started me off into writing. And of course, I've been writing fiction until the past few years ago, until 2007, when the first one was published, was 2006. I submitted my proposal and wrote my first nonfiction ghost book. So since then. There's been 6, because one of them technically went to the second. That's what you got, the second edition. I like it way better. I'd had a different editor. I had Dinah, who I prefer. She's a good editor, and she made it much more perfecto, in my opinion. I got to add stuff to it. I mean, when they said that it was going to second edition, that's when I wanted to add 10 more ghost pictures and more stories. Well, I stayed at Fort Magruder Hotel in Williamsburg. That is a really haunted hotel. Believe me, with that convention we had stuck on, they had tested us to do ghost tours to see what would happen at that time. And things started happening every year. I had one ghost come back. He was a Civil War soldier, Union. Every year, I would be filmed, followed by my friend Mark Lane, who's a film videographer, professional. We started doing, some of it became Paranormal World Seekers, actually, like a show. And every year he would come on, the guy would, spirit through my ghost box. And he said, well, hi, Pam. Oh my gosh. I said, oh my God. War soldier. How are you doing? I said, you do remember the guy behind this camera here, right? He says, my Mark. Every year. I felt like I had a guardian angel with him, literally. So he actually told me he had a girlfriend. That's how I first found out. And let me tell you about my filmmaker at the time, Mark. He's a filmmaker, so anything can be made and faked. Like he always said later on, there will always be doubts, because even if it's true, people will say it could be made up. And unfortunately, we can do things. I mean, look at Lord of the Rings. Yeah. But he was with me. I changed his attitude about the thing, because he's seen things that are done and talking out of my box that no way could be. There was a part where I had asked when I first met the soldier, I said, well, are you from the north or the south? And he said, the north. I said, okay. Well, did you have a girlfriend or a wife? He says, a girlfriend. I said, well, was she from here? Did you meet her down here when the war? Or did she come from up north? He said, up north. Well, what's her name? Cynthia. Real easy. Bump, 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 he answered. First time we did that in Fort Magruder, and I mentioned it in the book, and you probably read it, is how well it drained his camcorder. This is an expensive camcorder he uses for filming commercials and things, okay? Brand new battery in it, 10 hours. It's supposed to last 10 hours. It died after 2 hours. Luckily, he could recharge it, but he learned after that. He had another similar experience filming a commercial for a winery in Williamsburg, that it started doing that too, and asked, well, is there any Civil War, colonial? And they said during that point where they were at, Civil War soldiers, the boats had parked there and they had gotten off. So that was connected to that war, at least. And it was funny how it started draining. He said draining his battery then. So he's learned a lot about that.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I have a bottle of wine from the Williamsburg winery from back in 1998. That's where he had the experience. It was filming a commercial for them. Yeah, I think I only paid like $4 for the bottle of wine back then. So that tells you something. It didn't taste very good, but I kept the bottle. I didn't realize I didn't like dry wine back then. So I still don't. I still don't like dry wine. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed going. Yeah, I really loved going to Williamsburg as a kid. It was one of those places that we went on school field trips and stuff. Because, I mean, I'm from Baltimore. In fact, Dinah wrote a story about Middle River. And that's where that's where I lived near the last years that I lived in Maryland, was in Middle River. So, because I went through the whole webpage last night, and I've interviewed a bunch of people that have written books for your publisher. I've already interviewed them. And so I contacted Dinah because I'd like to talk to her.
Right.
Mostly because she was writing stuff about where I grew up. I want to hear what she has to say about these areas that I lived. because, back then if I saw something, I never said anything, because, you're nuts, Denise, you're going, things like that. So, I never told anybody most of that stuff. So we do have a question in the chat room for you, and this is from April. She asks, she knows that you did costumes. She goes, what kind of costumes do you do? And do you do it a lot? Make a lot of costumes?
I used to do it a lot. I haven't done it for a few years. I still have costumes in my I used to wear them for conventions. I went in a masquerade and I won with some of them. So, I still have them. I still, can wear them. I just haven't been making so much. At this point, my husband took over it's partly a sewing room office. He took it over. I had an accident, I think, with my toe, and I haven't gone back in there. Right in here on the couch, I can either turn the TV on if I need background noise. One of those hyperactive people ever since I was younger. I used to be able to study with the noise of the TV, which is kind of odd, I guess, be able to multifunction in my brain. But
that's what I do.
Yeah, I still have them. I can still costume if I want to. I will pick out and know things that are wrong. And I think the last thing I made was for my husband something, but he can sew himself too. He can do his stuff too. He actually makes the last weapon I had made for my last costume was just steampunk Victorian dress. I made that in a week. So never did did the bustle and all. And he made the weapon. It was more science fiction like. So he can do all that. He has a stormtrooper armor, the real thing with the gun and all. So we just haven't done. Yeah, he does occasionally costume me. It's kind of harder for him more and more. He works some of the cons around here. At least he did. So he can't wear the trooper armor as head of con operations. He can't see through the so he'll wear something like his last one he did was from Stranger Things. He did the share. He does him, and he's done his Stargate, but comfortable things like that. But yeah, I could probably still do it. I've done things. I mean, if I didn't know how to do it, I wouldn't be able to make me some masks I had to wear for this year. So
I saw a little girl the other day.
And I didn't use patterns either.
Yeah. And I saw a little girl the other day wearing a mask at the grocery store, and it was an Iron Man mask. She didn't care, but it was a mask.
Yeah.
But it made me smile anyway. So, what got you into, you talked about what got you into writing paranormal books. What got you into having knowing that you were having paranormal experiences?
I've always had stuff all my life. You said you had things you didn't tell. It was a family thing. My mother had it. I'm sure my father did. I'm sure the Irish in him and the Sioux Indian blood in him probably had to have it too. But my mother was Czech and Slovakian, and she would have dreams. I knew two of them. I'm sure she had more than that. She told me two of them that happened. One of them that my grandmother was going to had died, and she was going to get a letter from my Uncle Joey that next Monday that he had died. She would get in the mail he had died. And I looked at her in third grade, going, okay. And she did. Exactly everything she said. Years later, she told me a friend was going to call me. I'd seen since seventh grade. She was my best friend back then. And I was 18 and out of high school, and I was living in alcohol. And she goes, oh, by the way, Jeanette's going to call you tomorrow on the phone. I said, well, Jeanette's on. And she says, yeah. I said, well, how could she? She doesn't know where I'm at. I haven't written to her. I've lost addresses. And she did. The girl called me the next day.
Huh.
So she was dead down accurate on it. She did tell me about a dream about dying. And it was like this later, a couple of months paper woman did die on the operation, had the same weird experience. Going up, she, like in her dream, going up out of her head, like almost she's like bobbing on a cork. That was it. And there were these dark holes in the up above. And she went into one. It was real dark, she said. And she said, well, where am I? And next moment she heard her sister who had died when she was 18. And she goes, Tony, why are you up here? And my mother says, she said, you died. Where am I at? And then the next moment, this man's voice came out of nowhere. She said, He said, the next moment she woke up, that was it. And then 2 months later in the paper was a woman had the same exact weird experience, but they saved her life at that moment on the operation. She had that experience. So my mother thinks to this day she was heading to heaven. So she's there now at her sister's for real, which I'm had a weird experience too, writer-wise, with a workshop I had done when I was with this one group that I blanked out, and I think I went to where they were all at, but they pushed me down. And I saw my father too, which he was. But but that was interesting that she had that. So she inherited thing, and she saw ghosts too. I mean, so it wasn't like anything free. My father died, she saw experiences. So it wasn't like anything to hide. Okay, we had these experiences. I didn't tell everybody. I told a few of my friends, but there were friends I knew were cool with the whole thing. So,
well, we're going to take a break right now. So everyone, you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back with Pamela Kinney in just a few minutes.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and my guest tonight is author and actress Pamela K. Kinney. And we do have another question for you in chat. She said, sure. April asked, can you share your short horror poem? Her husband likes fiction and poetry, and I will tell him about her.
Oh, gosh, I have actually a lot of horror poems.
Oh,
unfortunately, wow. I don't have access to them right now. I have one coming out in Horror Writer Social, or it's WHA to have it on there. Poetry Show, I think 13. It's coming out, I'm thinking by no more than next month. I haven't seen anything else about it, but it made it there's 50 that made it in out of 120 people that were submitted. So I was one of the 50, and it's a Lovecraftian poem.
Okay.
Originally, it had been accepted for an anthology that was specifically themed to the Long Man, they call it. It's very Lovecraft, let me tell you. So it had made it, and of course, it never got published, so I still had it. And I was told by the head of the Horror Writers Association, our chapter in Virginia, oh, that's really, really good, because I'd read it at the Pole Museums. We had a table there, and we did readings. It was one of the nights a couple of years ago, and so I submitted it, and it made it. So it's going to be in there, and I can't remember the top of my head or any of my poems, and I would have to get out of online. I could get it in my computer, then I would be off of this probably. I'm not that greatly talented, able to do things too much.
No worries, and just let me know when that's
husband,
published.
It's coming out the HW. I sure will. I have that, and I have a horror story coming in, an anthology. It's coming out, retro horror, and that's from Nightmare Press, which is a small edition of Anubis Press, which did my ghost book. So that's coming out too. Hunting the Goat Man, talking about all my legends and the stories I learned writing all these books. Paranormal Petersburg has, and the Tri-Cities area one, the Paranormal Petersburg has a story connected to Prince George in Virginia too, not just to Prince George in Maryland.
Right.
And so that gave me an idea, which the Maryland one did too. So I wrote a horror story with that. So see, learning all this stuff, it gives me ideas for stories.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is the entire time I lived in Maryland, which basically until I moved to Kansas City was my whole life, I had never heard anything ever about a goat man. And as teenagers, we would have been out there. But I'd never heard anything of it. And maybe it's because the internet.
I don't know. He's been out for quite a few years. The one that surprisingly is the 70s that we have in Virginia, and I wrote a story about that, a really creepy one. If they ever decide to publish it, the publisher in Virginia through our local horror writers chapter, she's one of the members, is the Bunnymen. I really got into that legend. It's up, but some of Maryland has heard of it too. But there's a Bunnyman's Bridge. It's up in Fredericks, and it's a serial killer dressed in a bunny suit with a hatchet. And it starts since the 70s. But they said the legends supposedly start in 1900s. Mm-hmm. There's only two things that it's in my whole story. It's in Haunted Virginia, Legends, Myths, and True Tales. Like I said, there's more books out there. And that's all I certainly did that one differently, like Legends and Myths and urban legends. And the Bunnyman is a really big one in Virginia. And I kind of think that's kind of interesting because he's like the man with the hatchet and that, but he's a man in a bunny suit. So,
like I said, something else I'd never heard of. And like I said, it's probably because when I left the area, it was, the last time I lived there was 1984. There was no internet unless you went digging through books and stuff, looking for this stuff. You may not have found it in the Baltimore County Public Library.
Well, they've been having people since the 70s, and they would talk about every year, Halloween, people would run to the Bunnyman Bridge, the kids, the teenagers, so they could catch them. So for a long while, they said police started watching there because kids would come there looking for the Bunnyman. Because the story is, if he gets you there on Halloween night at midnight, you're dead.
Sounds like
why they would run to go there.
Yeah.
But they found out about him.
Yeah, like I said, it just sounds like one of those, we have a Gravity Hill not far from here. Everybody has a Gravity Hill, and it's nothing. And we have a Crybaby Bridge, and it's like there seems to be some of these themes that carry on in every state, and sometimes in every locality. And like I said, I'm not going to go looking for a possible monster in my age, But, back when I was a teenager, yeah, I probably would have. If I had had access to some of that information back in the early 80s, I probably would have.
There is a gravity hill somewhere in Western Virginia. The crybaby, or whatever you want to call it, where the hands are on the car pushing it, is the one in Virginia. It's on a historic triangle. Crawford Road, that is creepy. No, nothing pushed my car. Or when Mark and I went back and filmed it for that.
Yeah, we have one.
Nothing pushed his Jeep.
Yeah, ours is just down the road by the railroad tracks. And my daughters all went down there. You got to go, Mom. I'm like, it's an optical illusion. I said, I'm sorry, but there's nothing there. The one in San Antonio, we had seen that one years and years ago on TV. And so that one was interesting. We have another question from Anna. She says,
sure.
Is there any truth to the legends of old Ruffin Mill Road, such as the Hellgrounds, Ghost Lady and the Baby, etc.? I've heard of happenings there since high school.
Ruffin Mill Road, is that in Richmond area? Sounds familiar. I haven't heard anything. There's a lot of things I don't know. It's like you said, even with the internet, at least you look it up purposely, or someone tells you. I don't know everything, unfortunately. The road sounds familiar. And if it is, I've been down it, and nobody was ever. I've never.
It's in Bermuda, Virginia.
But that doesn't mean to say. Okay, that's definitely here. I've been there. I have not heard of anything about that. Honestly, I'm sorry I didn't. And I live in the area, so go figure. I mean, but you know what? There's a lot of stories that someone may have an experience. I've learned to go to places because a lot of people don't know anything. There's one thing in Surrey to Suffolk, for example. There's the same organization, Bacon's Castle, which is very, very haunted. Okay, it's got a reputation by the people that they have this one group that goes there all the time, and they're a big group, and I trust whatever they say. But there's a little house that's owned by the same group that was the land was owned by Pocahontas' father, who gave it to her when she married John Ralph, which ended up living in, of course, Henricus, which is here in Chester, which is haunted too. I got stories about that in Haunted Richmond too. But she told me the house tour. Oh, this place is. I said, well, if I get anything, I'll let you know. I hadn't got a chance to go and stop there and say I got things because, of course, what happens at this point with the books out, the pandemic. But yeah, it's got haunting because I did a ghost box session. That's what I do sometimes. See what we get. If I don't get anything, okay, there's probably nothing here. I could be wrong, but this is what I didn't get. The ghost box has never been wrong for me. It seems to really take to me, and I've had people say that. The questions, and if you read the book, and one thing about John Smith's second fort, which didn't pan out, but he was going to build it there. And I got something about that, the word. But then what was funny was that people in the mail also started talking, and it sounds like they're connected to the house area. Because a lot of people own that house since, because Roth never lived in there with his wife, Pocahontas, but other people had over the years. And the things they said, I mean, it's like the ghosts know. They said about, did you say ghost? When one said ghost, I said, and the woman's voice goes on and says, Haunted Virginia. And that's how she said it, Haunted Virginia. It was creepy. I thought that was the first time I ever been creeped out by anything with that word, the way she said it. I'm thinking, you're still really creepy. So there's ghosts there, but I never told the ladies, and I thought, well, maybe it's better that they don't know that there's stuff there. But it sometimes people, investigators, that's why, and they can find out if they get anything. If they don't, then they don't. But a lot of things too, people make stories. I mean, I can tell you as a kid, back in California, in El Cajon, I wanted to freak out my friends, and I was good at fiction, right? It's like the Bunny Man. Somebody was a potential horror writer for that. The 70s, they probably took two ideas because a local librarian in that area research to see if there really was a bunny man. And all he could find was 2 reports in police, a man in a bunny suit. Nothing scary other than trying to scare a couple, and the other one tried to, I guess, stop people from building a housing development. And someone probably took that idea and had a potential to become a horror writer. And that's by probably a lot of some urban legends make it. I had one in California I made up, and I freaked out my friend. I said, "Oh, in Harvesting Canyon, you know about that?" Yeah. Well, didn't you hear about the Great Dane that walks the road alone? And if you stop it, you don't want to stop it because if it turns around, I freaked. And so things like that, people can make up stories too. So.
Oh yeah, we did.
That's why you investigate. That's why you investigate. Is it true or not? You know.
And Anna says it's in Enon, also known as Snake Road, the Ruffin Mill Road.
Okay, I've heard of that.
So
okay, I've been down. I haven't had that. I know there's probably a lot. There's Civil War stuff down that way. There's a lot of many batteries. With. And there's a hospital too. In fact, it's also called Enon Screamersville. I learned that term. And I looked it up, and all I can think of, there's several legends connected to that, and that has either the African Americans that were slaves that lived down there were screaming, supposedly in the 40s, in order to yell to their friends. That was one term. Another one said it could be because of the Civil War hospital, which is around that area, that people were cutting legs and stuff operating, and there was a lot of screaming. So it's actually nicknamed, and it's on Facebook. Look it up, Screamersville, Virginia.
Will do.
And it's just one little section. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff out here. You almost have to find and try. I get more and more stories now that I've been out there. But in the beginning, especially with the Richmond books, trying to get people to tell me things doesn't always work.
No,
when I did
because they were hiding it. I remember growing up, nobody would talk about the hauntings in Richmond, and they were everywhere.
And then Petersburg and the Tri-Cities, and I had some with Chester, and that would be Enon. I learned more. That's for Screamersville's in that one. I learned more about that and all the stuff that I didn't know before from the Richmond stuff. So I learned more stuff. I go on, of course, at that point, I'm starting to go out and ask people purposely, do you have any stories about this place? I'm just curious, you know. And sometimes they say, yeah, they have stories. So, you know, learn to pull. First time, it's not as easy to pull out. You look up, you can look up in books, you can look up on the internet. You try to find different things to learn where you can find where there could be stuff for your books. So
we have another question from April. She asks, did you ever go to the Ferry Plantation when you were in Virginia Beach?
Yes, I did twice. It's not in my books. I didn't make that. There's a person that wrote the book for that area, so she beat me, and she didn't have much. I could give stories about that. I stayed twice over nights, and it was a group of mine, and we paid, and we all went there and had experiences. And then the second time was with another local guy here, and he paid for it all. And he actually they brought a teenager from a friend of theirs with them. And that night was the weirdest one because, well, number one, I even got an EVP of a cat crying. It was funny because at the time, the woman, she passed away, but she was the head docent. And she was telling us the stories of different areas that she knew about. And I was doing the recording because I figured, see what was talking about the legend. And as I listened later, there's a cat crying like it's like at her feet, meowing up at her. And there's no cat there, but there is a cat ghost that's been seen for 40 years at that place. I actually, and my weirdest, we had things all night, got things off my ghost box and stuff like that. But was up in the room. I didn't have a ghost box in, but my friend had a ghost box. And they were talking to this one ghost came out, and it was a kid, teenage, and he said he was the room. We were in the office upstairs, and he goes, he was looking for the little girl the teenage girl they brought with him. So he was obviously a teenager, and he obviously sounded like he had a crush on her. And yes, they can probably get crushes. I've learned that over the time. And we said, well, she's downstairs with the guys, the couple that are ahead of this group. They brought her. He says, oh, okay. And next moment he was gone. And then we got this man's voice come out of there. It was a deep voice. He goes, why don't you go home? And they're like, because I hear this. I said, well, why do you want us to go home? We're stuck here only another hour, and we're this is it. We're stuck here. We can't leave. We're on lockdown. I always tell these ghosts that. I'm sorry, but we're stuck here on lockdown. And the next moment, my seat I was sitting on, and I wasn't a lightweight. I've lost weight since then. It went up and down. I'm bouncing up and down, and I stopped. And they were paying attention to his. I go, oh my gosh. And I go, they turn, I go, what's wrong? I go, you should have looked. I said, he wants us to really go. And the next moment we hear the voice, it's time to leave. We're able to leave now. I said, thank you, because obviously one of the ghosts doesn't want us to stay. And we think to this day it's the African-American servant that they had there. One of them. I heard he's really rough and mean and type person. And I'm thinking, yeah, he bounced me up on that seat to tell me, yeah, come on, you're going to get going. I thought, oh my gosh, I've never been bounced up and down. I thought, I'm not a lot of lightweight, but yeah, I was over there overnight twice. And it was interesting. It is, they knew at the time of the living ghost, their name.
Yeah.
There's more than that. And outside of it, if you go outside where it's surrounded by a bedroom community, which means really rich houses. Yeah. You have to have money for this. Yeah. And there was a court there. And of course, there's a tree on the other side, which was actually a hanging tree used by the house at one point when they had slaves rebellion hanging. But there were Native Americans had been there, and supposedly the story that she had told us, the docent that heard from that they thought was a legend at the time, that when they were digging up, because they sold the rest of the land except for the house the city took, was Indian burial grounds. And that they supposedly, people making these places and took these bodies and were selling them on, the black market. Well, she thought, well, we hadn't had anything. Well, until one of their archaeologists dug up something and found and said, look at this bone. She thought it was a cow bone or something, maybe because it was a plantation. No, it's a human bone. And she said it's not one of the slaves or the people that live here. So it was obviously the Native American, and they probably did take their stuff. And I remember going out there, the first one actually, and saying, well, if you're here, if there's any here, are you upset? And I know you're probably upset with, I've heard the story of your stuff being taken here and it's built over. And if you can let me know that you're upset, just give me a touch. And I'll understand you're upset what's going on out here. They pulled my hair.
Oh.
I actually felt my hair pulled. I said, I told somebody, don't tell them anything anymore. Let's not say any more words. And they understood that. But yeah, I understood why they were upset, but they pulled my hair. I felt it right in the front.
Oh, well, you know what? We're at our next break. This is a perfect time to stop. You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back with Pamela K. Kinney in just a couple minutes.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and we were really talking about a lot of things on break. And so I'm sorry for being rude, but we were talking about, we'll go ahead and finish the story. You were talking about the Cavalier Hotel there in Virginia Beach, and you said it was had been bought out by Marriott. So
the Marriott, they redid it, they rebuilt it. Changed it, so some of the things are gone. It was 6 floors. It's funny because when we stayed there for the paranormal conference, I actually went to the 6th floor and I took a picture of it. I found there's the door number 666, which is funny because I was right under that. I was 466. It was kind of interesting. There was a 666 if you think number of the beast. I thought that was really weird, but they redid things. Okay, they tore down the modern one. They had one from the 1960s on that was there. And I had it it's there to this day. I don't know if it was due to that hotel or due because it's all connected, because that whole was the beach area before they built the second one there. But the first one, the 1920s, they redid some stuff. It's still the outside looking like it does, which is kind of creepy in a sort of way. Because in the story I wrote in the anthology from the Nubis Press, it's got the picture on a Sunday that I was there and it was foggy, so that simplifies it's creepy. But I keep thinking now that they talk about when in hotels or houses you remodel something. It happened at the Fort Magruder one, and they actually had experiences. A whole year they were remodeling the 2nd floor. The workers were having problems with the ghosts there. Well, I'm thinking this place was totally kind of remodeled to add restaurants. It was less rooms, but the restaurant there and everything else. I'd like to stay there now and see how if the ghosts are still really ramped up. They wanted me to, one of the local news people interview me about the ghost. And they were going to have this investigation group down there doing a little investigation. And the hotel says, no, Mary says, no, we don't want the investigation. Okay, well, we'll have just me and I'll just talk outside. It's not like it's investigating, right? They didn't want me there either. They gave them a list of historical stuff. That was it. So the Marriott won't talk about it, but I bet it's got stuff going on. I mean, if you remodel and they change some of the stuff, did that really affect the ghosts too? Kind of like to know that.
It's always interesting to know. So I did want to ask you a question that was my family related. My family is related back to the House of Burgesses. Okay. Did you ever do any investigations into any of that or have any hauntings that said, hey, John Carrington haunted this place?
Okay, you talk about like Colonial Williamsburg, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I didn't have any original Virginia, but I do in the second one. That's the Capitol. There's a picture in it. It actually was the third Capitol, because the House of Burgesses met there. It burnt, first two, I think, kind of burnt down. I'm trying to remember. I have to almost look at the book again on the history part. But I went there because we had leftover at the time. It was after the book was first turned in, when it was the first edition, and we still had leftover. They passed for the year, so we went. I said, "Let's go on the Capitol." I didn't do it, and I wanted to visit it. So, and of course, at that point, I've been teaching myself so much with investigations to just take pictures all the time. I don't know why I did. And they went down, the tour group, including my husband. So there was nobody on this landing with me. It was quiet. It was nothing. When I got home later and brought up the pictures, there's a figure in it. You kind of can see it in the book. Mostly you can't see it, it's glowing, but there's a hair. It looks like there's a hair. A man with a hair, the way they look back, tied back. And there was nobody there. So I was glad when I got to do the second edition, because I got to add that in. I took out a picture there from the original one. It was a whole gravestone from the graveyard of the church there. I took that out and I added to add the story about the Capitol. There was a kind of a legend about a ghost story, one little line though I found. But I did my experience, and that was kind of cool. So no, I didn't get in. I didn't have anything with me at the time to do that, and to get in, I could probably do it outside, maybe at night when it's quiet. But inside, unfortunately, you have to be there on a. No, they're going to be happy at me stopping to doing a ghost box session, but it would have been interesting. But that's where they held a lot of the House of Burgess and stuff. But yeah, I may remember do that one day, because at nighttime there's nobody around there except tour group. And they got ghost tour, but I could probably stand outside the building and ask things.
Oh yeah, probably. I know that I witnessed some spirits there in one of the taverns that was built prior, like around the Revolutionary War. I had some stuff happen while I was there. I had some stuff happen while I was at the College of William and Mary that was not related to the roaches. Bugs. There were bugs there that were as big as my hand. It was horrible, but because they had us stay in the dorms while we were there, so we didn't have any hotel expenses while we were at this event for that week, and it was one of those unusual things that you'd never thought you'd experience. And the poor little 18-year-old roommate of mine, she was terrified the whole time. We had to sleep with the lights on anyway, but that was because of the bugs, not because of spirits. But
yeah, that would scare me a lot more.
Oh yeah. I told somebody, I said, I will tell you that these cockroaches had probably been there since the time of William and Mary. They were huge. I swear they could have picked up my bed and walked off with it. But there was a lot of spirits in the auditorium there, the dorm rooms that we were in, and then 3 of the classrooms that we had classes in, or workshops in. We had stuff happening, and you would not believe how many people turned a blind eye to it all.
I believe it. There's a guard that works there now. This is funny. He was in my book, my redone of the ghost stuff to do with the paid rent house. He had worked for Colonial Williamsburg at one point, and they had at night go around to check the houses, make sure everything is safe. And the paid rent house is the original house. It's a real original, not rebuilt. This is the real thing. Mm-hmm. And he was in there, and they hadn't heard from him for a while, and they're supposed to go on to the next place. So they went back tracing him, and they found him in the paint and rent house. And something freaked him out, but he quit. He said he wasn't going to ever say what scared him. And it's the most haunted house. Actually, the people that work at that place consider it the most haunted house in Colonial Williamsburg. But he quit that and he went to work for William and Mary. They said they had someone who does a ghost tour said, "Oh, I didn't know that." He says, "Believe it or not, he still works there and he never says anything about it." And she says, I thought that was funny that he would quit Peyton Randall and could have scared him. And he went to William and Colonial Williamsburg in some ways. So you're proving it's true. It's more haunted.
Well, I mean,
So
it is
know.
the oldest. It's the oldest college in the States.
I just wonder how he handles it. If he quit because of the ghost of Peyton Randall house, wonder how he handles that. So, but he's still working there, I heard. So,
but yeah, one night. We drove to that hotel that you were talking about, the Marriott one, and checked. Just checked it out. But we didn't go in because back then you didn't know that you could just walk into a hotel and walk around without checking in.
Right.
And of course now you can't either. Whole different problem though. But yeah, back then I had no clue that you could just, drive up to a hotel and walk around the interior without checking in. But that's just how it goes. What was the most haunted place that you've ever been?
Gosh, Fort Magruder was pretty good. Believe me, what pictures I had in the book, the few, because I had about 20 to 30 pictures of ghostly mist and stuff. So, and some with figures in them. So this is just to show you that there were a lot with that hotel. And actually, I'm not the only one because someone else had when I used to sign for Colonial Williamsburg, the one woman there that always gets me in there that is in charge of all that. She said that she used to work for one of the ghost tours, and when somebody went back to them, I said, "Are you going back to the haunted hotel?" That was the Fort Magruder. That's where they considered a haunted hotel. That definitely, Henricus Historical Park here in Chester is. That's the second one after Jamestown. Thomas Dale had a lot of things he did. Wasn't very nice. Just a lot of things to do with that. It has a layer of history there from the colonials that are seen there still, the Civil War soldiers that were killed, and they were African American ones. And there's most of the graves are gone, but there are a couple still there. And I actually saw with a white eye. He was real tall too for that time, because I was standing there in the night, and my partner was up more. And he walked right past me, and I'm looking at him, and he had a white eye, one white eye. That was the weirdest thing, that white eye. And I looked at him, he looked at me, and he walked past me, because I'm 5'9", he's 6 foot, and he disappeared.
Uh-huh.
So that was the soldiers. And then they also have a modern ghost there. That we found that out that one night, the first time I ever did that investigation was for the haunted Richmond 2, actually. And the building where the people had the offices, that's haunted too. The bathrooms are haunted too. I can tell you a story about the bathrooms that'll freak you out.
Oh,
so
well,
that's really haunted stuff.
I have heard of so many haunted bathrooms.
The bathrooms too.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because I hear about that a lot. One of the places that we investigated in Illinois had a haunted bathroom.
I believe that. There's 2 up in Northern Virginia. I went to Paracon up there, and they said there was one of them was a guy. And I got him off my ghost box. And the first thing that came out of that was, it was like coming out of this. And I had changed it the day before, so I got some accurate answers at the battlefield out of that. It was interesting because we found some plaques there that thing. But he was coming out. I said, well, it's like this voice. I said, well, I heard there's a ghost in here, and you're not very nice to the women. It's a woman's bathroom. And I heard something real small coming out of the box. This weird this voice came out clear. And they kept going on. Finally, I said, well, what did you say? And suddenly, a little bit louder, "You bitch." Sorry, but it's what he said.
Uh-huh.
I said, "What did you call me? You bitch?"
Oh, no.
I said, well, that's not very nice. What are you doing in a woman's bathroom? I'm saying, what are you doing in a woman's bathroom? That's terrible. I mean, all the places to haunt, you're haunting the woman's bathroom here in this community center. Girls come in. Well, he got louder, see? I said, well, I'm sorry, but, women come in here, little girls. I've heard from a psychic out there in that Paracon that you actually are looking under the bathroom. Do you really do that? You bitch. That's what he kept saying. He answered me with that every time. I took a picture later on. I saw it looked like invisible legs at the bathroom. And so after that, I said, I ain't going. When I had to go to the bathroom, we go home, drive 2 hours back home. I went to the kids. There was one of their little. I went in there. I said, I can handle that. But I was never going back to that bathroom. But they said, yeah, they said he's in there. They've gotten him in investigations. But he was real nasty about it.
Yeah, he was kind of rude,
so
wasn't he?
I told the truth. I said, why were you in the woman's bathroom? Well, we know why he was in the woman's bathroom. Wow, what
he was peeking. And you know what? We're at the top of the hour news break. So you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We will be back with Pam McKinney after this NPR news break.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Yext. Have you ever gone to a company's website, typed a question into their search, and gotten nowhere? If your website can't answer your customers' questions, Yext Answers can help. Go to yext.com for a free trial.
Live from NPR News, I'm Jack Speer. If President Donald Trump succeeds in getting a quick Senate confirmation for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, the court's conservative majority will grow to 6-3. Activists on both sides of the issue say abortion rights would face a serious challenge. As NPR's Sarah McCammon explained, states could play an increasing role in regulating the procedure.
More than a dozen abortion laws are nearing the Supreme Court, with other cases working their way through the lower court system. Fatima Goss-Graves is president of the National Women's Law Center, which supports abortion rights.
Even though we're in a situation where the vast majority of people in this country support access to abortion, that we are going to have something pushed through where the Supreme Court may leave us without that right.
A majority of Americans favor some restrictions but also support Roe v. Wade, the 1973 ruling that legalized abortion nationwide. Without it, the question falls back on state lawmakers. Sarah McCammon, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump paid just $750 in federal taxes the year he ran for president, and in some years prior to that, nothing at all. That's according to an investigation carried out by the New York Times. The Times in its report citing years of large tax losses claimed by Trump via his various business dealings. Trump has fiercely guarded his tax returns, becoming the only president in modern times not to make them public. President's tax filings, according to the Times, also show from money coming in from abroad and looming debt that could conflict with the responsibilities as president. In Northern California wine country, crews are again battling intense fires, including one blaze that has quadrupled in size since yesterday. As NPR's Eric Westervelt reports, multiple wind-driven wildfires are forcing people in parts of Napa and Sonoma counties to evacuate.
Overnight, strong winds fueled the growth of 3 blazes that are prompting a growing list of evacuation orders and warnings across parts of wine country, including some of the city of Calistoga, St. Helena, Santa Rosa, and other communities. Some people are having to evacuate for the second time in a few weeks. In Napa, what's been dubbed the Glass Fire is raging 0% contained across more than 11,000 acres, threatening hundreds of homes and wineries. The Shady Fire started west of the city of St. Helena, and the Boysen Fire is burning northeast of the Sonoma County city of Santa Rosa, a city devastated by a deadly 2017 wildfire. Eric Westervelt, NPR News.
Senator and Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris is calling on voters not to be discouraged by Republican efforts to fill the Supreme Court seat left vacant by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg ahead of the election. Harris saying that people cannot let what she called the infection that President Trump has brought to his office and Congress to spread through the courts. On Wall Street today, stocks rallied. The Dow up 410 points. The Nasdaq rose 203 points. This is NPR. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. will use its diplomatic and military influence to try and ease a volatile dispute between NATO allies Greece and Turkey over energy rights in the eastern Mediterranean. Pompeo's in northern Greece days after Greece and Turkey committed to restarting a diplomatic dialogue on a dispute that triggered a dangerous military buildup there. Ambassadors to Poland from 50 countries have appealed to the Polish government to improve its treatment of the country's LGBT community. NPR's Rob Smits has more.
In an open letter released on Sunday, ambassadors from countries including Poland's EU partners, the U.S., and Israel urged the Polish government to end discrimination of sexual minorities. Hostility to LGBT rights has become a flashpoint in Poland recently. Polish President Andrzej Duda called the LGBT community more destructive than communism. And in around 100 towns and regions across Poland, local governments have passed resolutions condemning what they call LGBT ideology. Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Warsaw in recent months to protest the government's anti-LGBT policies, draping the movement's flags over statues of Jesus Christ and the astronomer Copernicus. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Berlin.
The Securities and Exchange Commission today is out with new rules for electronic trading platforms for U.S. Treasuries, corporate debt, and municipal securities. The proposal would be subject to public input. It's aimed at addressing concerns about shifts to so-called alternative trading systems dealing with government securities, as well as municipal bonds and other similar investments. Wall Street Watchdog Group is better known for overseeing the U.S. stock markets. I'm Jack Speer, NPR News.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore. My guest tonight is a very interesting author by the name of Pamela K. Kinney. She's got all kinds of stories, especially about the state of Virginia. And I do have a couple questions for you myself. Have you ever been to Colonial Beach, Virginia?
No, I haven't, but I have friends there, but I have never been there, no.
Well, that's a place you need to go. That's where my husband and I went 2 days after, the day after we got married. We went there to see my grandparents. They stayed at Monroe Bay Campground, which is just down the street from James Monroe's house. So we'd been going there for years before I took my husband out there. So it's got a lot of stuff. I suggest if you ever get a chance to go out there, it has got a bunch of places that are haunted out there. Next question I have is, you were talking about a Civil War battlefield when you were talking, I think you were talking about near that convention center. Was that in Richmond?
Which one? I talking about the one I was talking about now that I did a convention. Mm-hmm. That was Williamsburg, and actually the whole area was a battle. The Battle of Williamsburg. Right. In fact, Fort Magruder is actually not. Even though there was a Fort Magruder, the hotel itself is actually in the middle of all that. At the time when I first wrote Virginia High Historic Triangle, I knew about the houses having issues there, but I didn't know about the hotels till after I'd been there. So I was so glad to be able to add it. It was actually in the middle. In fact, they said when they dug up the back to redo the back part, make it pretty like a yard, gardens and stuff, they found a lot of bones and relics in this mass grave, which is what they did with a lot of bodies sometimes, especially the Northern soldiers probably were left there. So it still has a lot of Civil War soldiers in that hotel. People have had experiences up the yin yang. It has modern ghosts there too, of course. One of them, I think I can be proud to say, and it's in the book, that I actually might have helped him on, or at least kind of told him how to go on. Because when I did the last time we were there, we did a ghost tour. They had asked me if anybody wanted to go on. Someone asked me on the tour that. So I asked that, and there was a gentleman had died there. He was, I think, on a business trip, and he died in his room. And the funny thing, it was on the toilet, which is interesting because someone told me later on that most of us will die on the toilet. That was weird. That's something most people seem to have an issue with. I don't know why. That's because what they think is it's something they think so. But he had died, and he came on, and I said, does anybody want to leave the hotel? I figured, who wants to haunt a hotel for the rest of your life? They have a little girl there that's still haunting it. She died of an asthma attack. And he said, I do. And it was the second floor. I found out later after. I said, no, he was on the second floor. So it was interesting. I said, I said, you have the power to leave. And I just said, I'm maybe psychic, but I think you have the power to leave. If you really want to leave, you can. I said, be honest, your friends and your relatives are probably over on the other side that you got, that you'll know and won't be lonely, won't be like strangers in a hotel here. I said, if you really look, can you see it? I bet you see a door opening. And that door is opening. I bet you can just walk right through it to the other side. And it got real quiet, didn't hear anything. And someone said, did he leave? One of the people with me. And a man's voice came out and says, man's voice. So obviously helped somebody leave that hotel. I kind of wish I had did it for the little girl. It was funny because that night we also had a man and his son with us. And she wouldn't talk to nobody but the 13-year-old boy. It was like a girl with a crush. And it kind of made me sad because she had died of asthma. I asked the hotel person that told me about it. She said that her parents were still alive. I said, so the poor things, I mean, you're in a hotel. It's not like anybody you know there. It's like, pass on. You don't want to be stuck in a hotel. And this poor thing is stuck. Almost wish I could go back there. I don't know if they would want me to do that though, and help her. I'm sure grandma or somebody's over there that will be with you, but it's kind of sad. But she answered questions for that 13-year-old boy. I asked him to do it.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel sorry for them, but there's a lot of Civil War soldiers there too.
Have you ever been to Salyers, the battlefield there in Salyers, not Salyersville, Sailor's Creek?
Sailor's Creek, yes, it is. It's in haunted Richmond too. We went there. I actually joined a group of mine up there. I've done the history behind it, but I'd been there before. But I went back and went up there to meet this paranormal group we were with. We did it during the day. We did the inside of the house. It's not mentioned in the book because at the time the park didn't want it known, that they didn't want it known that we were letting them up in the top room. We were allowed to talk about the house, but not the room on the second floor. And their ghost box, I have a ghost box that they got a woman, and she said she was one of the women that was hiding down in the basement when the Civil War was going on down there. And then they turned into a hospital up the first floor, and the blood was coming through the slats to the basement. And then they had a man came on, and he said he was the one that was the head park guy at the time, but he used to do reenactments there with the reenactments groups and stuff like that. And he passed away. So he came on their box, and he said his first name, and the girl downstairs, that's him. So he's haunting there too. But we went there and outside, we did along the creek, because a reenactment person, to go there, that's where they've had a lot of experience when we do reenactments, really supernatural experiences. And we were doing stuff. Then I left while they were doing, I went away, and I was standing near the woods part, and I heard, it sounded like 4 people talking in the woods. Now, this is August, 100 degrees. Only paranormal investigators would be out in this park at 100 degrees. Think about it. Nobody else with any intelligence would be out in the woods in 100-degree humid weather. And I'm hearing, I saw Civil War people camping, dead ones. So I went to go get the head of the group, Jackie Tomlin, but by the time I got her back, they quit. And I told her, I said, I heard people talking out there, and there's nobody but us. Because the only other persons that were there, then we went back to the house, was a truck driver and his wife, but they came up in a truck and they came to take the tour of the house before they went home, because they lived in the area in Richmond. And there was nobody out there. But they actually have, that was the last battle, and Lee's son died there, and I think he took his son away, but a lot of the bodies, both Confederate were buried in one mass grave under there. They never been taken out, so there's a mass grave under that park of soldiers that died at that battle. So yeah, we got a lot of voices and all sorts of stuff. And one of the things, I was filming it at the time with the little camera I had that did filming, and it shows my meter running and the recorder and that, but our voices, Jackie was asking questions, nothing. Like it was masked off, and yet it was recording when I did it. So I don't know what happened. She said when she took some pictures there, she got no pictures. But she got the recording, so
that's
little,
strange.
Digital recorder, but that's it. So what happened in that first floor room, I don't know. But that's a lot of odd things. Always have things like that will happen once in a great while. So who knows? I mean, but it's haunted. I've been to Cold Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
That's got a lot of. Petersburg has a lot of hauntings. I've been there during the day when they did the tour, where they had to bust you in because they did like here they had to do with the last battle that was there. I knew a guy that reenacts, and he's local, but he used to stay overnight in that reenactment thing. He did it one time. He said he got up the next morning. It was real quiet. This is like 6 a.m. There's nobody going on. There's nobody in the park, of course. And it's real early, and they hear guns. They start hearing guns going off, shooting. And they're thinking, well, is it the military? I said, no, that military base is not that near. And this is like, it sounded more like those that were shot back in the old, not like something on. And he heard it. After that, Troy won't stay overnight for that, which is funny. But yeah, so it still has stuff going on there. So yeah, there's a lot of. I've been to some of these haunted spots around here, and I've been a couple of them. And of course, with Surrey and Suffolk, there was a couple of them down there I've been to, and got some voices out of. So
okay, now we spoke about
being interesting.
Go ahead. So we spoke about paranormal. Have you ever had a UFO sighting?
Yes, I did as a kid. Actually, two, both back in California. One when I was much older, and I was married to Bill, and we went in the country of where we lived in Santa Cruz County. It was real country, so there was nothing, So when we saw that weird light, that thing, the way it acted up, we kind of all figured that had to be a UFO because there wasn't anything else. But the one I saw when I was much younger, I was in 3rd grade in Sacramento. I kind of knew that they were all, those things were kind of like a bat. I mean, it wasn't like I was pretty smart, advanced for my age. But we were sitting on the back porch. My father was sitting under the tree. He had sat on the bench he made. He was good at construction. My mother and I were sitting on the back porch. Our front yard was Sacramento. The backyard was the country. And our front yard was city. The backyard was, we had the Campbell soup field. I mean, I used to chase the jackrabbits out. If my mother ever knew that, I never told her. I used to chase the jackrabbits. Those things could have killed me. They were bigger than I was. Sitting out there, and I see this thing up in the sky, and it's really close to the ground that I could see how big it is. And I go stand up and walk over to it and look up. And I remember dimly it was reddish, red color and silver. It seemed like the colors could blend together. Kind of a weird, like, there was no difference. I explain it. And it had a sound. I remember to this day the sound of it. And it wasn't, this is the 60s, it wasn't an airplane. Wasn't a helicopter. It was round, and I tried to see if there was something on top. It was a UFO, and it was slow. It took its time going over our yard, like it didn't care if it was seen. This was the afternoon and a bright sunny day, and it just went off. And I remember my mother said she had seen it, and she said, what the heck was it? So I told her friend, I said, you saw a UFO. You should go tell a policeman. I said, do you think I'm going to tell a cop? They're going to think a kid's crazy, like they're going to believe a kid. But I remember to this day, it was that low. It was pretty big cigar, but for a UFO, it was big. It could have held quite a few people in it. I don't know, I just remember that and that sound, and I never forgot it to this day. And I actually wrote a little thing about it for something somewhere. I remember that. I posted it on a blog how I remember that. Somebody that asked about UFO experiences. But that was the only time, when I was older, the night thing that I can count as UFOs. Anything else I haven't really seen, other than, there was something that acted weird and that all the air, it flared up in the sky. I'm looking out in the planes. We were living in El Cajon in a house, going toward it. But I don't know if that was UFOs. That just could have been something weird, and the airplanes were just running to. I don't know why flying toward it, but counting UFO wise, that was a definite one, and the other one, I guess, sort of. But since then, no. But I at least find out. I figure when I added Surrey in any of my books, I added UFO. That were their experience with this, because people want more than ghost stuff. They want us to know about Sasquatch. They want to know about the monsters. They want to know about the urban legend, and they probably like to know about UFOs. And really, all my books have had UFO experiences all over. So
that's why I asked. I saw that in the book, and so you know what? We're at our next break. You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We'll be back talking about Bigfoot when you come back. So come on back, everyone.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and I'm going to tell you guys, if you have any questions, you need to get them put in the chat room, because I'm going through all my questions, and you may have the same question I have. I'd like to at least know that I'm getting them for you. So if you have anything you want to ask, please get it out there. So when I left, I said I was going to ask you about Bigfoot. Have you ever had a Bigfoot encounter?
Sadly, no. I don't know if I want. I would like it, but I don't know if I would, because I can tell you a story. It was Charles City drive. A tour I did, a ghost, which really wasn't a ghost tour, but I drove home and it was dark at night like it is now. And of course, Charles City's really country. That's why there's a lot of, a lot of the old plantations are there. Plus, there's farms and stuff, so it's really country. You almost have to be careful driving, around this time of year till November because of getting hit by deer and that. And after hunting, of course, all the hunters, we've had that experience of dog hitting too. But anyway, you're driving home. I kept thinking, awfully creepy if Bigfoot just stepped out from behind those trees. And I thought, no, I don't want Bigfoot to step out because that really would creep. I don't know why I thought that. That would really creep me out. So I don't know. I've never had an experience. No, I would love to try and go on a Bigfoot thing and hunt, but I don't know. I would love to do that. I'd love to go on a werewolf one too. There's people that do that. The dogmen. I'm writing a new book coming out right now for them. That'll be coming out probably next year from New werewolves and other shapeshifters stalking America. I have a thing about in fiction. I love werewolf stories. I love werewolf movies. I'm that kind of person. So I always used to love reading up on werewolves too, not just ghosts. So that's one of my other favorite creature. And of course, there's a lot of stories in the United States with werewolves. And of course, the dog man or whatever else they want to call it. Skinwalkers, which is a different type of shapeshifter. It's more witches. In Alaska, I'm learning about the otter man. So that's another thing. And actually, it was on one of the local paranormal shows to do with Alaska. They had talked about the otter man, so it was interesting. But I had found a whole book on that, so that's interesting right there. And I wouldn't mind going on one of those dogman hunts because that would be I kind of like to see. It looks like you think of a werewolf. It's a wolf, a dog-like creature, canine wolf on its hind legs. So that would be interesting.
Yeah. The Otter Man was on Alaska Monsters Season 1, Episode 3. So that a friend of mine was recently on the Alaskan Triangle, Mike Ricksecker, who's also written a book for, he has a couple books in there for your same publisher. And he now
I got Ricksecker books.
Huh?
I got a couple of his that he has mentioned something about different werewolf stories in his. I think I got a couple of them.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of books I can find.
Oh yeah, he's the guy who published my story, and he now owns Haunted Road Media, and so we support him wholeheartedly. And he's got a lot of interesting takes on almost anything in the realm of supernatural, paranormal, cryptozoology, mythology. Because he's writing something currently about fairies and things like that. Have you had any experience with anything like that?
Yeah. Well, worldwide on fairies, there's always been stories of all kinds. The term fairy is more England, Scotland, and Ireland. But around the world, there are so many creatures that are so close to that. Actually, because I wrote a short story, it was for an anthology of fiction one at the time, horror. And you could still get it on the, at least on Amazon. And I have the hardcover copy. Mm-hmm. It was called Pukwudgies.
Yes.
And the way it describes, that's almost like a fairy, but it's a Native American story up in New England area. So there is always something like fairies all over Just the term fairy is set for England, and that's the whole thing. They would explain you can't call everything. They have different names all over. So, and ghost stories and UFOs, the fairy ring. Think about it. The abduction. There's almost some of that also closely aligned too. So people don't realize that how many some of the UFO stories are closely aligned to, the fairy stories, the same things, the people disappearing for years, coming back.
Yeah.
And so it makes you kind of think a lot of things.
And they say we've had encounters with UFOs since the beginning of time.
Right.
So it's possible.
Other things too. And talking about Bigfoot and talking about the Dog Man, which is werewolf-like, which is interesting because there's actually a horror novel that was my favorite werewolf book, and it still is. It's now out of print, but I found it. Somebody found it for me. It's called Woofin'. It made it a movie in the 70s, but they made it Native American, where turn into wolves, that sort of thing. It's not exactly like it was in the book. And the two main characters movie from the book, but they're in New York, and what it is there's a race of beings that are with us at the same time, but they're canine like, but they're not werewolves, but they probably inspired werewolves. And he wrote a really good scary story about it, and I kind of liked that. It was different. It wasn't the werewolf that had the shift. It was actually a being like that, and they were a race of beings, but they were feeding for a long time, hiding because we had so many cities. They would feed on the homeless and that, so they wouldn't be caught, because we were actually easy prey and all that. And I have ideas. I said I even had an idea for someday a good scary novel of doing the same thing what King did, The Mist. Another think about it, dimension, just like even ghost stories. Ghosts are. I read this a long time ago, and somebody else actually had another book about it, but I remember as younger that there was a book about it, that actually heaven and hell are here the same as us, but in another dimension. So, sometimes I think, this is my theory, because I guess I read a lot of science fiction, that people will see ghosts when there's a dimensional doorway opening, because we are the third dimension. That's why we're three-sided. There's the first and the second. Then they're going on. The spirit world is probably a different dimension. Of course, there's other worlds, other dimensions. So who knows to say that maybe that's why people were talking about, well, they think he travels through a warp place or disappears. Well, maybe he's not even from this dimension. Maybe the Dog Man's not, but we see this and people think werewolf. And that so they blame someone saying he's a werewolf or something. But that's just a theory.
Right. I mean, we all have our theories on all this stuff that's out there. So, a theory is what it is, until we know for sure. That's all we can have. So, I mean, at least you have one. That's the way I look at it, because it means you've thought about it.
And as a fiction writer, I can turn it into a book at least interesting book. And it gave me ideas about almost like the King thing with The Mist, but not quite like The Mist. So that was pretty, I have ideas to do something one day, and I want to do it. So,
talking about your books, we do have
I keep thinking, you never know. I mean,
you don't. You just don't know. But I do have a question in our chat room about your haunted erotica. Keeping it PG, of course, or G-rated. What got you into writing that?
I haven't wrote that in a long while. Sapphire Feline is still, that's my synonym for that. I got a chance to wrote a couple of, because I like romance too, and paranormal romance. So I wrote a couple of, I didn't think of those as erotic, but the person wanted it, and she said, "Oh, this seems very sensual." I'm going, okay, it didn't seem that sensual. Later on, though, when she ended up closing the anthology, didn't have a chance to publish it. I got them back. I was going to get paid good money for it too. I got them published somewhere. And of course, the editors, because it was the place I got it, because I wrote a book, a novella, it was pretty erotic, and it fit for that. Because they were an erotic imprint of Mundania Press, they were phased. You had to have a little more erotic than what I had.
Oh.
So I ended up, some things changed to those too. But you know what? It sells. Romance actually sells 60% of all the books. That and mystery sell really well. And so erotic, yep, real life. So it made money. It kind of had some fun themes. I even had a couple of erotic horror. One was a Jack the Ripper one, and that got in a regular anthology, horror anthology. The other one was a novella that's published by Under the Moon. It's Unwitting Sacrifice, and it's Lovecraft stuff. I mean, considering Lovecraft seemed pretty tame, but it was pretty good idea for what's made it monster and all that, and sacrifice the poor unwilling virgin. But it gave me an idea for a story, and it worked, and it sold. I mean,
Oh, that's what.
so
that's
that's that. But I haven't wrote any of that quite a while now. I spent a lot of horror stuff like that, straight stuff like that. Fantasy, urban fantasy. I mean, there's a romantic scene in it between her and the guy that was a werewolf during the apocalypse in Richmond, and you don't really see anything. It's behind closed doors. So that's Pamela's stuff. Yeah, I haven't wrote in a long time. I have a book I found, dragon ones. They're erotic fantasy romance with dragons, shifters. That I'll finish one day, and maybe I'll probably either find a publisher or self-publish it like I did with my Vortex changed my life by me, but we'll see how that goes. At this point, it's been a lot of Pamela stuff. I just have finished a horror story and finished it really well, and it's got paranormal investigating in it. So whatever I do for real fits in this story. It's a horror story, and it's with a publisher right now. I'm waiting to see if yay or nay with them. It's been a while, but I'm probably down a long line, and with the pandemic, it's so I have that, and I'm writing the werewolf nonfiction book, and then I've got a YA urban fantasy with angels and demons apocalypse. I got to try, and someone said they would be interested in that, so I need to get back and go through edits with that sucker. That was a YA.
I know that you write. Do you have a day job?
No, I don't, which is probably a good thing, because I would go crazy insane. I admire all the writers that I know that work regular jobs and then they have to go home and find time to write.
I could see where that would be hard, because
luckily I don't have any family here except for my husband. My husband's gone during the day. This is my best time. I watched CBS this morning, whatever. Maybe Virginia this morning, which is I'm going to be doing. My next interview is actually going to be with them through Zoom about the new book. Then I write, because there's nobody here except the cat to bother me, and the cat's not going to bother me. Believe me, at that point in time, she's out.
Right.
So I write.
She's had her breakfast. It's now
like
nap time. So,
well, she gets fed in the morning. Husband goes for he leaves. That's it. So she's got morning, one at night. So that's it. She doesn't bother. She's become the assistant. The joke is that she sleeps and working hard, snoring away. But so I'm glad, because and it's not that maybe my standard, but if I have to on a schedule, I can do nights. I've done weekends to finish something that needs to be turned in, like Haunted Surrey to Suffolk at a certain time. I made sure everything's polished, even if at the very end before I send it off. So, so I'm kind of glad. I mean, I admire. I've done it when I worked. I've done it when I went to college, wrote, but it's still not as easy. And when you're later on, you have kids, it doesn't help either. And luckily, he's adult and he's married and gone. But it's not that it's nice and peaceful now. Nothing to bother me. So no, I'm glad I don't have to work.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I'd love to write the book about the history and hauntings at the Sally House, but I have a full-time job that makes me work almost 80 hours a week. And so it's hard when, I mean, I wish I was kidding. I mean, I'm working as much as I possibly can, and too bad I only get paid for 40 hours, but it is what it is. But I like my job. I like what I do. I've been able to work from home since 2007. So I can't
At least you
complain.
get to work from home. A lot of people don't.
So yeah,
you're lucky there.
Yeah, I didn't have any
my
adjustments.
My husband works, and at this point during the pandemic, they were one of the real essential workers. People forgot about the sewer and the water department. He works for the sewer department. And you do need those working during this time. So he's really was essential. But he's taken over some people's call time weekends because he's going to take, because there's no convention. And I was the guest, but there's no conventions right now. There's not even one in January they're going to have because they canceled it and they had to wait and see if they can get re-up with the hotel because that was their re-up time anyway. So maybe the next one might not be till April, but I'm hearing who knows when this. So I don't know if that's going to happen at that con in April because of the when we get the vaccines. We'll see how that goes.
Well,
but,
I'm not going to be the first one out there in line to get a vaccine that they haven't proven. That's me. But I don't think this pandemic will ever go away.
Well, it won't be. It won't be till March, and it takes time after that to who gets it first, which you want the hospital people getting it because you don't need them sick either, and then other people on like that. And I'm the right age to probably they will end up giving me at some point because I'm 66, so I know at this point probably be smarter to get it. But it depends how many they got. Once they are approving. I'm not listening to Trump. I'm listening to reality. It will probably be March at the very most. So at this point, there's nothing going on. So he's working a lot of overtime.
Well, I could see
mine,
that.
I guess, being home. But he's willing, and it's helped paid a lot of bills, so and stuff like that. And right now, he says he's got to work more because we bought a new fridge to get rid of the old one that's still working, but 30 years, it could happen,
Well, it'll save you money in the end because it'll use less electricity.
Yeah.
It'll have a better rating. So that'll help you. But I think we're going to be living with coronavirus symptoms probably for a long time. I don't think it'll ever go away. Kind of like the flu.
No, it
will never go away.
The flu, well, even the flu doesn't go away. It comes back and change. Things are there. I mean, the cold's always there, the common cold. So once it's out, it's out. So
and there's nothing we can. I mean, all we can do is our best to keep from getting sick.
When they do have a vaccine to take it, like we should. They say now they think they will have more people taking the flu shot. That's the first time I heard it. They actually worry that we'll have which I'm glad because I took mine already. He took his, and pneumonia shot too. I made sure, since if you get COVID, pneumonia is a big thing. I don't want that. I've had it once down to a Brenlicus bite. Don't want it ever again. That was the only time I had it. And let me tell you, I don't want to see it back. So I took the basic other shots. At least we know we don't have that when it comes. And you can get pneumonia even without the flu. And somebody else just proved that. He thought he had COVID, but he didn't. That came back negative, but he has pneumonia. So that's why we get flu.
Yeah, pneumonia sucks. I agree.
But yeah. But I work. Yeah, I write at home and like that. The werewolf book's probably the easiest because right now I'm gathering all the information, writing it down, and then eventually I'll go back and start reorganizing. Plus, I'll go back and online to see if there's more than what the books and few other things I know are out there, so I can find more information. Some things I wrote in a blog, like about skinwalkers. I had thought skinwalkers because I used to do a blog. I called it Supernatural Friday. So one was a bunch of skinwalker ones. And so I have a lot of information with that, and I put that aside. And then my old blog, I went and looked it up, all the stuff. So there's a lot of other things. I want to try and find a few things. I recorded, because I caught it, the show about the Alaskan one with their story about the few things I had with the otter man, so I can have that, because that's something different. And that's pretty well closely related to the skinwalkers. That's going to be interesting how two different native, of course they traveled down, they were all one tribe at one point, had these stories that aren't that far apart in the way they, like, you don't dare talk about the otter man, he might hear you.
Oh.
Same thing with the skinwalker. You don't talk about them because they're going to come there after you.
Okay, well, we got to take our last break. So we'll come back to this after this break. So everyone, you're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Any final questions, please put them in the chat, and I will get to them as soon as we come back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore. And just so you guys know, Pamela had a really good question during the chat, or during the break. And it was, do we ever get anything paranormal, like EVPs, over the recordings when we're doing the show? And the answer to that is yes. So sometimes if you guys have time, you can go out there and listen to the shows. They're all on the website, and you can hear sometimes some EVPs within there. And if you do, please let us know, because we would love to mark those and do a special episode on just the EVPs picked up during any of our shows. I know Kat's all for that. So let us know. And because I think it would be fun to know which of them have EVPs in them. I know Kat on Fate Magazine had a few of those. But I've never went back to listen to them because I heard them live. So why go back? So that's you guys' assignment out there. Go listen to the repeats of the show and tell us what you hear. We'd love to know if we have any EVPs out there that we've missed. So, before we go any
I'll
further,
let the ghosts in my house.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we go, any ghosts in my house, you can go ahead and leave them EVPs on it. Okay.
Perfect. Where can people
in my
find?
House, I've had people. That's what I said last time.
Oh yeah. Where can people find Pamela K. Kinney books?
Depends. Well, Schiffer's anywhere. at this point. They can find us through Amazon. They can find us through BarnesandNoble.com or in the store. The stores, actually, they can even order through the stores. Ask them there about that. The Newest Press one, the new one, it's on Amazon in both Kindle and on paperback. And my a lot of it will be on Amazon. There's some anthology had stories in there. There's other ones, my full novel, How the Vortex Changed My Life. Those you can find on Amazon. Couple of my stuff you can't. It would be only through Under the Moon, and I would almost they actually, if they were to go to my website, that's https:// there's no www in it, PamelaKKinney.com. And up on that first page, if you look above, there's one that says, click it. It's nonfiction stuff. I have articles and then ghosts. That's all my ghost books and stuff like that. The other side, there's fiction. It'll tell you anthologies, novel, novella, short story, things like that, so you can find them. Things like that, and you just click onto them, especially the books. So they'll have either to Amazon or the publisher or whatever to find. You can find my different stuff for sales that way too. So, and if you live in the state, next month I have 3 events. Well, 2 of them I can definitely say you can come to. Not sure about the third one. It's a senior citizens community on Halloween. I'm talking about ghosts, but I'll be at Yorktown, Virginia's Market Days Fall Festival at my tent, selling all my books like last year. It will be socially distant this year, and there will be a mask, and I will make sure to have the stuff that you can use on your hands. It will probably be 1 book each out instead of a bunch of them, so you can check, ask us questions, and we'll take credit card only for that because it's hard for the banks, my bank, to go ask them for a lot of coins to change. Right. And then, or they can message me when they go to my website. I can tell my PayPal if they want to pay that way. I mean, ahead of time, just come pick it up. No hassle. On October the 24th, I will be at Book Warehouse in Williamsburg. It's on Richmond Road and the Premium Outlets Shopping Center. And I'll be doing a signing from 12 to 4 o'clock with not only Haunted Surrey to Suffolk, but Virginia's Haunted Historic Triangle, because it's their area, and any other the ghost books. And I may, if they'll let me bring in, then I can, they can buy there too, and I'll have them sign. So that will be on that day. And the Fall Festival's from 8 to 3 p.m. So, and you just go to my website on the side where it says Appearance at a Glance. They could click it on, get website, find out where these places are at. Plus any upcoming on voice things coming, online like this.
I saw that her website is very clear and very easy to maneuver and has lots and lots of information. And it also has access to her Facebook, her author Facebook page, as well as her author Twitter page. So you go and check that out. And if you need to contact her, contact her.
And I'm on Instagram. And I'm on Instagram too. It tells you up there my Instagram name, so you can look for it on Instagram. So,
well, right now I'm irritated with Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for asking me every 5 minutes if I'm registered to vote. I'm like, it's none of your business.
It's telling me, Facebook is telling me that I already did that last week. So it's like, you know what? I give up. They're going to keep doing that. So I'm done. I did my duty. They don't have to worry. But
yeah. Well, in my case, I'm a poll worker. So yes, I'm registered to vote.
Oh.
So I'm going to be there all day long on election day. So yeah, I'm one of those dumb people. Because they had a shortage of people to do it because the elderly people that usually do it aren't doing it.
Well, I can't even do it because I'm over the age at this point. So, and I probably don't want to take a chance. I know there will be people that will go maskless. I went through this enough at stores. I don't need to have
They're
that
not
chance.
allowed to in Kansas.
And they had
Yeah. In Kansas, they're
Well,
not
here
allowed to go
in Virginia, they
maskless.
did it really smartly. They're not allowed here either, but they're fighting it in every way I've seen it. So I can imagine that will be hell that day. And I figure I'm not going to worry. I've done it. I actually was going to do mail in, but I was going to take it in. I've always figured you can take things in. I'm smart about that, and you can. And the register is right near me, but I end up taking it in. I actually bypassed because they're allowing voting there at the registers, but they let me come in because I was already done in the envelope, and I just dropped.
Well,
but it's really easy peasy, no hard, no muscle fuss, and they'll have the polls, of course, open on the 3rd for those that do it. They're trying to get younger people, at least millennials. They said that because this way it make it a lot easier this year. So,
yeah, like I said, we're doing it, and the training takes about 10 hours too, just to do that. And
yeah.
But in our county, we are cleaning the machines right there in front of them. So you can go. We'll clean the machine before you vote. And then by the time the next person gets there, we're cleaning it again. In fact, I got sick from all the alcohol. It went through my hands into my system. It made me sick. So, but we're gonna pre-vote on October 14th.
Yeah, that's a lot easier.
So
I was so happy. I don't have to worry about it. It's done. I vote. It was nothing's hard on that voting thing. It's not that hard. It was easy to think of what. Yeah. I knew what I wanted.
Right. We all know what we want. So that's the main thing. I don't care who you vote for, just go vote. So
that's what you need. A lot of people don't vote. That's the sad part.
That's true. They don't. And I have voted in every single election ever since I could. That's me, though. So, but you know what, everybody? Next week, there will not be a live show. I am doing a presentation for our local library here at, actually in the park across the street from our house outside, so that people can social distance, and we don't have to wear masks outside unless you can't social distance. So needless to say, that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to walk over there and introduce myself to my neighbors whom I've never met in 20 years and tell them about the paranormal and see what they have to say. So tune in next week when Kat picks the show. I think it'll be the Michelle LeBaron one if we haven't already replayed that. So that would be a good one. And I will be back the following week. And let me see if I can get my calendar up here and tell you who it's going to be that following week. So it will be Beth Cooper Meyer, one of the very first authors I met in the paranormal back in, the first time I went to the Belvoir Winery. She used to live here in the Kansas City area, and she now lives down by Lee Ehrlich in Florida. So it will be nice to talk to her again. I can't even remember when I know it's coming up, the anniversary of when I met her. So it's probably been 8 years since I met her. So it'll be interesting to see what's changed in her life since then. And I've never had her on, so this will be new to me. And but she used to be my go-to person when I had any question paranormal. So that'll be interesting to see how everything's different now. So I hope you had a good time, Pamela.
I sure did. And thank you for having me.
I do have one final question for you. And that is, what is the scariest thing that ever happened to you? Because if you're writing horror, you had to have some experiences that got you to there. And this is from April.
This is okay. I have had actually the scariest ones, because not all, and I don't think maybe one thing I counted when I was younger, demonic wise, but I kind of got out of that. But the ghosts are people in life, and not everyone who dies is probably good. Let's admit the facts. What happens to the serial killers? What happens to all the bad people, right? There's a lot of bad people, and they're not going to change their pure personality in the afterlife. A couple of them I had experience. One I had definitely I mentioned it in Haunted Richmond too. I was coming back from it was a comic book store at the time. They're no longer open. When the husband died, she sold off all but the one, and it was also partly a used bookstore. Well, I was invited back. I had done an investigation there, but I was invited back to another group that was investigating there, and they got out this box. They were trying to get this female spirit. I couldn't get her because there was one male spirit dominating the conversation. He wouldn't let her talk, wouldn't let the others. And he found out kind of the way we got it that he didn't he treated women badly. And that's what I kind of felt that's what he was. Well, after he got real snazzy with them for the box, I was going home and driving, and I hear something in the back seat. Now, there's only me in the car, and there's nothing in the back seat. This happened to me years ago, so I kind of remember of me from a seance I did years ago when I was younger. And I realized I could hear it like somebody in the back seat. And I suddenly I thought, is that mean, abusive to women ghost in my back of my car? I started praying, God, I don't want him to come home with me. You tell these, let me tell you, you can tell ghosts not to follow you. I got news for people. Intelligent things are going to do whatever they want. And he was a human spirit, obviously, at one point, but mean. But whatever happened, my praying, whatever it was, silently, when I hit that where I had to turn off, it was like the car was light. He was gone. So it worked, because it reminded me years ago I had the same experiences after a seance we did, and it wasn't a bad seance, but a friend and I was driving her home first, and we happened to stop really quick to a stoplight when we heard something bouncing in the back seat. And I suddenly realized we weren't alone in that car of mine. I said, is there somebody back there? And we heard more noise. And I said, oh, dear God, I'm going alone. I can handle ghosts with other people. I cannot handle in my place that has no ghosts alone. And my friend Kathy goes, oh, it's okay. You can come home with me. She says, really, come home. Whatever happened, I don't know if it came home with her or not, but it went away. So she never said anything, but she told it, says, you can come in my apartment. I don't care. You don't have to be with Pam. Just come in. I want you to come in. It went away from me.
Well, that's great news. And you know what?
After that, I didn't have any bad feelings.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. The show is over. I hope everybody will come and listen next week and listen to any of the shows here on WBHM-DB.com, and love to have you. So you guys have a great night, and talk to you later.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.